So I made a video on the hypocrisy of the people who were calling out J.K. Rowling for supporting TERF merch, but then buy from companies who exploit human beings in very real and severe ways. Because while it's valid to be upset that somebody is supporting another person who doesn't believe in the human rights that trans people deserve, you also can't in the same breath support companies that exploit impoverished people who work in conditions up to 20 hours a day that I wouldn't even let my dog go into for below minimum wage. Some people asked me if I could do a deeper dive into fast fashion and what it is. So hello guys, let's learn about fast fashion, why it's unethical and unsustainable, and the brands that you should be avoiding if you want to be an ethical consumer. Fast fashion is defined by inexpensive clothing produced rapidly by mass market retailers in response to the latest trends. Fast fashion, therefore, can never be ethical. Let me explain why. So the first part, inexpensive clothing, has two parts to it. How do you make clothing inexpensive or cheap? Well, first you need to have inexpensive material. You need cheap material. Otherwise, the higher quality the material, the higher price. So how do you get material that's cheap? Well, use materials that are derived from plastic, because that's cheap. You can get plastic easily. However, what's something that plastic doesn't do? Biodegrade. Therefore, these clothes are not sustainable for the environment. What else can you do to make your materials cheaper? I'll give you a hint. It's something to do with fur. I'll give you another minute. Use real fur. Real fur is marketed as a luxury. However, it is a lot cheaper to produce real fur than faux fur, because faux fur is man-made and requires more labour and more materials. But with real fur, all you need is a male and female of a specific species, for example, a minx or a rabbit, and there you go. You have a set deal. Just have the minxes or the rabbits reproduce over and over again, and you have a supply of fur. However, a lot of fur is collected in one of two ways. Either by repeatedly grooming the animal, and that animal may well be locked in a tiny cage and never leave, or by skinning the animal alive. Some companies really want the real fur because it's a lot cheaper. However, they know that a lot of their consumers are ethically opposed to real fur. So what do you do in this case? Commit fraud. Just tell them that it's faux fur, like Shein did. Shein, Shine, who cares? They did that. How else do you make your clothing inexpensive beside materials? Use labour that is unpaid or below minimum wage. When you read the ethics part of some of these brands' websites, they will state, "We adhere to the legal requirements of produce." However, this has a slight little translation for you. They adhere to the legal requirements in the country in which that product was produced. For example, some countries, it's legal for them to pay their workers 62 pence an hour. So of course, if you were using cheap materials and underpaying your workers, you're going to have inexpensive clothing and still make a profit. Let's look at the next part of this. Produced rapidly. How can you produce fashion rapidly? You can legally adhere to certain work laws in certain countries that allow people to work 20 hours a day. That doesn't sound very humane to me. Also, in order to keep up with the latest trends rapidly, they may also plagiarize from bigger brands and, as well as this, small creators. Many fast fashion brands have been called out for copying artists, just ripping off their work, or copying designers, just ripping off their work. That's how they produce things so fast. You have workers working away 20 hours a day on designs they have plagiarized. So while these companies may adhere to legal standards, absolutely none of it is ethical. These companies will use sweatshops. These companies will use child labour. They will use underpaid workers. One of the saddest things about this is they are exploiting already impoverished people and are indirectly responsible for many other horrific trends. For example, child trafficking. One of the only choices that a person has in these countries is to work in a sweatshop or be trafficked, and this can include children. It is a disgusting trend that has happened because of the cycle of poverty and because of people in first world countries not caring where their products come from. The majority of these poor parents would not ever wish to see their child in that situation, but are forced to because 62 pence an hour simply isn't going to pay for the food on their tables. Brands should not be supported and encouraged to continue this behaviour. We need to show these countries that we do not stand by these practices and pressure them into reforming their laws and reforming their policies. But unfortunately, every single time a person buys from one of these companies, it is further incentive for them to continue with their unethical practices that harm the environment, human beings, and animals alike. For legal reasons, I will have to say that these companies allegedly conduct themselves in this way. Allegedly. However, this is the list of brands I've managed to come up with. That took me less than 10 minutes to find out, and if I discover any more companies that use these practices, I will put them in the pinned comment. Clothing companies that still use unethical practices such as the ones previously discussed in this video. Shein, H&M, Forever 21, New Look, Gap, Nike, Sports Direct, Zara, Urban Outfitters, Primark, Adidas, Walmart, Victoria's Secret, Essenza, ASOS, Fashion Nova, Topshop, Burton, F&F, Evans, George, Matalan, Monsoon, Miss Selfridge, Pretty Little Thing, Mothercare, Wish, Wallace. I will actually link an article that lists 71 different unethical fast fashion companies in the UK. 71. Let that sink in. In my last video, I specifically talked about Shein, Shine, Shite, but I will briefly go over some of their scandals. They have been known for stealing independent brand or artist work, selling insensitive products, for example, Islam prayer mats and a necklace that had the symbol of a specific 1940s political party on it, tried to pass it off as being the original Buddhist symbol, even though no one has thought of it as that for about 70 years. Marketing real fur as faux fur and the use of unpaid labour and child labour. H&M is a company that has consistently been accused of greenwashing. What is greenwashing? Greenwashing is where a company deceptively markets themselves as being environmentally friendly. However, a lot of H&M's products are still manufactured with unsustainable materials. Let's have a little bit of a look at what the head of sustainability at H&M said when they were asked how they can prove and guarantee their eco-credentials. I don't think guarantee is the right word. A lot of people ask for guarantees. Can you guarantee labour conditions? Can you guarantee zero chemicals? Of course we cannot, when we're such a huge company operating in very challenging conditions. So the head of sustainability is telling us that this company cannot guarantee ethical labour conditions, and zero chemicals. Straight from the horse's mouth. Helena, she's the head of sustainability at H&M. Helena, you can't market yourself as an eco-friendly brand and an ethical brand and then turn around and say you cannot guarantee these standards. That is called deceptive marketing. Helena, you may want to talk to your boss because I'm not sure if you will still have your job after this statement. There you have it, folks. The head of sustainability at H&M just said you cannot believe a word they say. Case closed. I'm just going to read this extract from the How Ethical is Boohoo article on the Good On You website. And this is very interesting. On the labour front, Boohoo rates very poor, our lowest rating. Despite some of its supply chain being certified by SEDEX members' ethical trade audit, best practice guidance in the final stage of production, the brand received a score of 0 to 10% in the Fashion Transparency Index. 0 to 10%. Boohoo publishes limited information about its supplier policies and audits and doesn't disclose any information about forced labour, gender equality, or freedom of association. The brand also doesn't disclose any policies or safeguards to protect suppliers and workers in its supply chain from the impacts of COVID-19. How about the environmental impact? Boohoo's environmental rating is not good enough. There, you have it. Can they at least do something about animal welfare? There is no evidence that Boohoo has a policy to minimise the suffering of animals. What is wrong with Boohoo? There is nothing. There's not one of these categories they have ticked. They are scum. The site also has an article on Forever 21, and I'm on the edge of my seat to find out how they did. Forever 21 received an overall score of D+ from the 2017 Ethical Fashion Report. A D+ for ethics? Come on, man, you've got to revise more. They are one of the only fast fashion brands that still refuse to sign the Bangladesh Accord on Fire and Building Safety, a legally binding agreement which requires brands to ensure safe working conditions in supplier factories. They have refused to sign an agreement to protect their supply workers. I actually don't need to go into anything else about Forever 21. That's scummy. That's scummy enough for me. That will do for now. So let's have a look at Fashion Nova. While Fashion Nova does not work with factories directly, its clothes have been made in sweatshops that paid sewers as little as $2.77 an hour and owed workers $3.8 million back in wages. And oh my god, April 21st, 2020, Fashion Nova will pay $9.3 million to settle Federal Trade Commission charges that didn't properly notify customers and give them the chance to cancel orders when it failed to ship merchandise in a timely manner, and that it illegally used gift cards to compensate customers for unshipped merchandise instead of providing refunds. Fashion Nova! Oh my god! This is LA based, by the way. This is in America, and they owe workers $3.8 million and are in a lawsuit having to pay $10 million to the FTC. That's incredible. If this company isn't being run by a chimpanzee, then I'm surprised. An actual person, a group of people who were developed intellectual human beings let this happen. They're out like 14 million. I actually had to pause for a minute because I was howling. How can a company be this bad at being decent? Oh my god. Okay, so Urban Outfitters. There is no evidence that they are minimizing or eliminating hazardous chemicals across their supply chain. They have also failed to produce adequate policies to address water usage and wastewater management. As for their labour conditions, Urban Outfitters briefly outlines some of their labour policies, including their third-party auditing processes and commitment to not use child or slave labour. There is, however, very little evidence to support these claims. Okay, if someone's going to tell me I definitely don't do this, could you prove it, please? Because I don't believe you. Because you're a fast fashion brand, and I don't trust any of them. I wanted to end on a kind of positive note because ASOS in 2011 received an Ethical Consumer's Worst rating for its supply chain management, aka how it treats its workers and the supply workers. But in 2017, it moved up to the best rating. Improvement! See, fast fashion, you can be decent people. It's possible. And in 2018, ASOS also published a full list of its suppliers after a call for more transparency in the fashion industry. Yes! However, it's not so great on the environment. For example, its 2017 environmental report showed some understanding of its main environmental impacts. However, it failed to present a toxics policy on how to reduce its use of chemicals in textile production. There was actually an investigation in 2017 called Dirty Fashion, and it discovered that the air and water emissions of some of the chemicals exceeded regulatory limits, indicating a serious potential threat to the local environment and the health and well-being of its workers and the community living nearby. I obviously couldn't go into all of the brands that I listed, however I will leave articles and reports down below so you can do your own research. I highly encourage anyone to research a company and its ethics before purchasing, not only for your own safety and security in case it's a scam, but for the safety and security of the workers and the animals and the environment. Your choices matter and you are voting with your wallet. If enough people boycott these brands, they will either fall, crumble, become bankrupt and will have to stop, or they will push themselves to become ethical like they should have been in the first place. Thanks guys for listening to this video, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Bye.